Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ron Amlin from SBM St. Louis, and today we are honored to have Fred Miller with us. Fred is a speaker, an author, and a coach, and businesses and individuals hire him because they want to improve their public speaking and presentation skills. And today he's joining us, and he's going to give us some of his best presentation and public speaking tips to help us all become better public speakers. And I have to say, Fred, I'm excited to have you here today because in a normal non-COVID world, I'll usually put up, our company, SBM, will usually put up at least 80 speakers on different stages around this. And I have seen people sweating. I've seen people shaking. I've seen people close to getting sick at that point in time when they have to go up on that stage and get in front of an audience and start speaking. First off, tell us about your book, and I've got your book, No Sweat Public Speaking, right here. Tell us about the book. Tell us a little bit about your background and why you wrote the book.
Well, I wrote the book because I used to attend all these great places where great speakers would speak, like Zig Ziglar and Les Brown and Brian Tracy. And it's very impressive. And you're a speaker yourself, Ryan. You know the difference it makes. And my mantra, speaking opportunities are business, career, and leadership opportunities. And I've had the privilege of speaking at some of your events, and it's great. It's huge in terms of credibility. And writing the book, that's another thing. So we perceive writers and speakers, you're both also, as experts. People like to work with experts. Experts command more money for their products and services, right? So all things being equal, if you write and speak, people perceive you that way. But your point was well taken. It's out of the comfort zone for most people. It's most people's greatest fear.
Definitely. And you know, it's not just those of us who get in front of 200 people to speak. I mean, a friend of mine is an engineer, and they had a 6-person meeting, and they wanted him to go over some issues that they were referring to in this meeting, and he was sweating and he was nervous, and people proposed to their wives and husbands, and you know, that's a presentation. And I thought it was really interesting. My son, who's now 17, but when he was 6, he was on the soccer team, and the coach gathered the 8 6-year-olds around for a little team meeting before the first practice. And the coach was really nervous, and you could tell he was presenting to a bunch of 6-year-old soccer players, and he was really nervous. And so, you know, we can all improve our speaking skills, and it'll improve our day-to-day lives and our jobs, and just our comfort level with getting up and talking with other human beings.
Well, you make a good point. For most of us, getting up in front of a group takes us out of our comfort zone, because most of our conversations are one-on-one. Most of them are on the phone. You don't see the person. People communicate more these days by text and email. You don't see or hear them. So you get up in front of a group, it's like, whoa, this is different. That's why you're uncomfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening now with Zoom and WebEx and all these others, because that's a different world. So you and I are both speakers, and you've had the same experience. Usually when we're speaking, we're the only people looking at everyone else. We see everyone else's face. Most people are looking at the back of everyone's heads. Well, now, as soon as that camera comes on, everyone's in the front row, and everyone's looking at everyone else. And that is a huge problem. The problem is, the first thing we look at is the person's face. Well, if you don't have good light on you, you don't know who it is. People are not looking at the cameras. I mean, a lot of people, it looks like I'm from Mars with the lights. You look up my nose, people are looking sideways. Second thing they look at is the background. And this is my business, so I invested in a green screen. I got some cool backgrounds. But you even see it on television. Somebody's got stuff on the shelf that should not be there. It's like, why is Ron reading that book? Or who's in that picture?
Right.
Well, the big thing about that is that we cannot multitask. This is key. Because if I'm looking at that picture, I'm not watching and listening to you. And the best example I can give, if you ever watch cable news and that little ticker tape comes across the bottom. If you're reading that ticker tape, you have no idea what they're talking about. And to prove it, as soon as the commercial comes on, the ticker tape is gone because advertisers would never pay for that. So if I'm looking at 20 different people, it's like, this is horrible. Everybody else is looking at everyone else. And it's a big distraction. So one of the things I think when you give a seminar is have all the video go blank. Now, you don't know what those folks are doing. They may have left the room or something, but
right.
it takes away from those distractions. And the third thing is the sound. A lot of people are using a microphone, that older computer. It sounds like they're in a tunnel. You know, you got to invest in a little lavalier mic or something else. People will watch bad video, but they won't listen to bad sound. So that's important. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your 5 tips. I mean, if people are out there, they want to become a better speaker today, what are 5 things that they need to consider?
First of all, know what you're talking about. I mean, really know it and study it all the time. There is confidence in your competence. That will lower your anxiety. Number 2, know the structure of a presentation. Because I've seen speakers, I've gone down to Powell and seen the Maryville Speaker Series, and one particular guy was a better actor than a speaker. And he just kept going round and round in circles, traveled down these bunny trails. The structure of a presentation is like a recipe for a great cake, and you can learn that. Third thing would be to use images, audio clips, and video clips in your presentation. We have the attention span of a gnat. I coach TED Talks, and those are 18 minutes. And if you don't break it up with things like that, you'll lose the attention of the audience.
And those are 18 minutes for that reason, right? I mean,
yes,
because they know if it goes 30, people aren't going to listen.
Exactly. So if you're holding a seminar, you've got to speak for an hour. That's really, really tough.
So if you have to speak for an hour and you know 15 minutes in you use a video, maybe you'll pull those folks who you're kind of losing back into the paying attention.
Well, the same thing with humor. Humor can be icing on the cake, but all audiences are not the same. So you have some humor, always make it self-effacing. And the ones who heard say, oh man, that rhymes good. I can't wait till the next one. And the ones who missed it go, oh crap, I missed it. I got to pay attention. But you have to have that variance or you will lose your audience. Another reason to use images, people have 3 learning styles. Most of us are visual learners, 65% of us. So I always use slides and I use images, not text or bullet points. Nobody comes to read your presentation. There's a disconnect there. 35% of us are auditory, the reason to use video, and the rest are kinesthetic. People take notes all the time. So you have your image, make the screen go blank so they look at you, because nonverbal communication surpasses verbal. The 4th thing you want to do is practice. Practicing is not optional. I mean, I know you're an athlete. Professional athletes, the amount of time that they spend on the field actually playing their game, it's infinitesimal to the amount of time they spend working out, right? Like, so why would you think that you could get up here and wing it? You know, a rule of thumb with the TED Talk speakers is 1 hour of preparation for every minute of presentation. You got to practice. Great way to practice. Video yourself, full body if you can. First time you go back to that video, turn the sound off. Just watch your nonverbal communication. You know, are you doing anything that's kind of distracting or whatever? Second time, turn the video around and just listen. How is your enunciation and pronunciation? Do you have any ahs or ers? How's your cadence? How is your inflection? How are your pauses? Third time, watch the video and audio. You'll see and hear what the audience sees and hears. And the 4th time, have a coach do it with you, because we all have blind spots. You know, you miss things that you're not doing right or doing wrong. 4th thing or 5th thing is speak. If you want to be a great speaker, speak. If you want to be a swimmer, swim. If you want to be a baker, bake. If you want to be a speaker, speak. The learning is in the doing. So you can think about it, read about it, watch videos, get coaching. you got to do it. You got to
You
be.
know, let me ask you this question about podiums, because I'm a big guy for getting people away from podiums,
Oh
and I
yeah.
know sometimes I'm stuck behind podiums as well, and I think about that often with all the political leaders. They're always behind a podium, and I'm thinking, why? You know, why don't they get out and just come and you know, be amongst the people? You know, our former governor Greitens, you know, he came and years ago, and I saw him speak, and he was dynamic speaker. He was out, he was away from a podium. He was telling these great personal stories, which I think is another way to really
Oh,
get your points
absolutely.
across. But then he becomes governor and he sits behind the podium and he sounds like every other politician. And so I always wonder, you know, why, you know, the politicians won't get out there, tell personal stories, and when they want to make their points, and instead of just, you know, sticking to the behind the podium, telling their, you know, political, you know, typical political lines, whether they're
No,
Republican or
you're right.
Democrat.
A podium forms a physical and an emotional barrier between you and your audience. But you're right. Get out in front of it and tell personal stories. Personal stories are the emotional glue that connect your audience to your message. Now, I saw Brian Stevenson, dynamic speaker, I can't remember the project, all these people who are in jail and shouldn't have been there. Saw him speak at Powell. He went 15 minutes over. Wonderful speech, but he stood in front of the lectern. And he didn't need notes. He's very expressive, but you wouldn't see it. And if nonverbal communication surpasses verbal, why do you want to have that blocking you? And now politicians talk about, and Trump mentioned it this morning, I think, you know, you got teleprompters. So you almost have to be looking at those teleprompters, but you can't be conversational that way.
Right.
But you don't want to miss some. So teleprompters are a whole different story. But you're right about stories. The body of a speech, make a point, tell a personal story that reinforces that point. And nobody else can tell your story except yourself.
Right. And somebody told me a long time ago that people will remember your stories, but they won't remember your point that you're trying to make.
No,
And that is so true, because I will have given a speech somewhere years ago, and somebody will come up to me and they'll tell me the story that I told in that speech.
I'll tell you right now, Ron, the story that you told at Experts for Entrepreneurs about playing racquetball.
Oh, right.
That older, I remember that story. You're there like, I'm going to kick this guy's butt. This is good. I'm going to embarrass him. And he wiped you out.
And the point wasn't the racquetball story. The point I wanted to make was don't take things for granted.
Exactly.
But everybody remembers that point through that story. And so that's why personal stories, people love to hear those personal stories.
And it's funny, sometimes people don't think they have it. I teach a class and they say, well, I don't have any stories. I go, really? Have everybody pull out your phone, open photos, and start scrolling. And everyone's got a story. I remember one gal, you know, I said, you know, if you have one, share it. She goes, it's my dog. When I was going through recovery, that's the only friend I had. And then another lady talks about her mother, 92 years old. How do you live to be 92? I mean, everyone's got stories, but we're just too close to it. The key is to be in the moment. And when those stories occur real time, you capture them and you put them in the hard drive of your brain. So when you need to have a personal story to reinforce a point, you've got it. And everyone's got it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Got those stories, and people want to hear them, and that's how we learn. Your point's well taken. That was years ago, Ron. I heard you tell that story, and the point was that you were assuming that, gee, I'm going to embarrass a guy. I hope his friends aren't here.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's what it's all about. Personal stories. People love to hear them. You want to be entertaining. So the bottom line of all communication, your business too, verbal, written, or visual is the same. We want the recipients as quickly as possible to get it. They may not agree with you, but unless they get it, you can't have a conversation going forward. So to do that, you need to do three things. Number one, educate. Number two, entertain. We like to be entertained. If we're entertaining someone, we have their attention. And number three, explain, and explain it simply. You know, simple words, no buzzwords, acronyms, techno speak. You don't impress people with words they don't know. You make them feel stupid. So we see the emperor with no clothes, but nobody says anything. And that's probably the key to it.
Yeah. And I think entertaining, you're right. People want to be entertained. You have to somehow give that educational message in an entertaining way. I saw a guy, I met a guy who does graphic design, and he was showing me this presentation he made for a CEO in the healthcare industry. And the CEO paid him to make this, all the PowerPoints for his speech that he was going to make. And he showed them to me, and like you had mentioned about not doing all the PowerPoint lists. I mean, he had charts and lists, and I'm thinking, one, that is not entertaining, and two, nobody's going to be able to read that. Or they, if they do read that, they're surely not going to be listening to you, because there's a lot of stuff to read. They'll be reading, and you'll be talking, and they won't be listening to you. They'll be reading. And so, yeah, I think it's a great point about, don't throw up all of your information on a PowerPoint and then turn around and read it to people.
Use images, because you know that story. So you could put up a picture of a handball court and a couple of rackets and put that up. People look at that, make it go blank, and then tell the story, because it was a great story. But yeah, it's all about stories and making those points. And everyone, that's a beautiful thing about them. Yeah.
Well, tell us how we can learn more about you and how we can contact you.
Oh, thanks for asking. I've got a website, nosweatpublicspeaking.com. I've got a ton of stuff on there. I've written a couple books. All the information is there. I've got videos, audios. I've been doing it since 2011. Or email me, fred@nosweatpublicspeaking.com.
Great. Thank you, Fred. And I know you're an entrepreneur. You've been a business owner for many years. And I like to ask this question of a lot of the business owners that I talk to. Okay, so the Fred Miller of today gets in the DeLorean. He goes back and he sees the Fred Miller at 30 years old. And you can go up to that 30-year-old Fred Miller and give him one piece of advice. What do you think? Nothing like putting you on the spot here. But what's going to be that one piece of advice you give that 30-year-old Fred Miller?
Speak. Seriously, I wish I'd done it ages ago. I went to all these rallies, saw all these great speakers, Tony Robbins and others. The thing is to do it. You got to get out there and speak. Write a book. You've written a book. That's huge credibility. Speaking and writing, I would have started a lot earlier. All we can do is go forward, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Harlan Sanders started in his 60s. A lot of people started. All you can do is go forward. I think my best years are ahead of me.
Well, definitely. I think they are as well. Well, thank you, Fred. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you in the future.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ron. My privilege.